The state of emergency in Mississippi, parts of the state facing the worst flooding in 37 years. One of several waterlogged states in the South. A home pulled off its foundation and washed into the river, part of a landslide in Savannah, Tennessee. And part of Jackson, Mississippi, look at this, underwater, the Pearl River at major flood stages and still rising. Here's ABC's.
As a major incident was declared around the River Teme in Worcestershire, emergency services confirmed they'd rescued at least one man from the river. As water filled this valley, severe flood warnings were issued, meaning there's a danger to life. The greatest concern is for the town of Tenbury Wells. Volunteers with lifeboats were helping the fire and rescue service to get everyone out safely, as houses along the banks of the Teme very quickly became uninhabitable. With young children to keep safe and warm, the Cayley family escaped with just a few essentials as river water flowed into their home.
Our basement's flooded, so the electrics are all on the way out, aren't they?
Oh, bless you. And how old are these?
6 months.
Oh.
And Gracie, she's 5, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're happy enough, you don't know what's going on.
This man had been looking after his friend's takeaway shop on the main high street when the river burst its banks. The water rose so quickly he had to escape upstairs and wait to be rescued.
And we were inside about 4 o'clock trying to fight the flood, get the water out. Had no luck at all, and unfortunately it got to the point we had to just go upstairs.
Tonight, relentless rain causing more river flooding and major damage across the South. Dramatic video capturing this Tennessee home collapsing after a massive landslide. Watch again, you can see sparks flying as the house plunges down a steep bank into the Tennessee River Saturday night. A second home also destroyed. Fortunately, no one was hurt. In neighboring Mississippi, residents there bracing for catastrophic flooding as the Pearl River continues to rise after weeks of rain. The governor declaring a state of emergency.
We do not anticipate this situation to end anytime soon. If you have not evacuated yet, we urge you to do so.
Hundreds of homes in Jackson already underwater. Some residents using boats to get around, gathering whatever they could carry before the river crests Monday.
Looking at this, I think it's going to be pretty bad. We're just trying to salvage and save whatever we can.
First responders rescuing at least 4 people over the weekend as the river now swells to its highest level in 37 years.
There's an ominous glow over Kangaroo Island, South Australia, as evacuees gather in a safe spot ringed off by a stretch of water and brace themselves for a long day. Almost half the island has already been turned to ash, and on Thursday its largest town was cut off by the fires.
We weren't expecting to be under threat here after the last few days, but we are here now, and yeah, we'll band together. We get through tonight, and hopefully daylight comes, we can get out of it unscathed.
Thousands have evacuated as temperatures reach more than 40 degrees Celsius in several parts of the country and winds pick up, intensifying the huge bushfires. The danger is centred on New South Wales and Victoria, Australia's most populous states.
I've noted that there's severe and extreme conditions that are across 2 states. The conditions that we've already seen in South Australia as they're affecting communities there as we speak. Those same conditions are now moving through southern New South Wales and Victoria.
Emergency text alerts have been sent to almost 250,000 people in Victoria alone, telling them to leave, and the military has been dropping supplies to towns at risk of being isolated by the blaze. The unprecedented fire crisis has killed more than 24 people and destroyed over 2,000 homes, leaving an area the size of South Korea scorched. Ecologists estimate 1 billion animals have died in the bushfires.
Dry, dusty and parched. Desert sand is slowly taking over once fertile fields in Somalia. Just 2 years after the last drought ended, the country is again facing one of the driest rainy seasons in more than 3 decades. The victims are visible almost everywhere. Makeshift camps like this one for those affected by drought can be found in almost every city. This is Baidoa in southwest Somalia. These people have just arrived from the countryside. Hareda Edin builds a hut for her family from old clothes. She says it took them a month to get here.
Our cattle died first, and then the crops failed. We fled hunger, but it still follows us. We have had no help since we arrived here.
The people of Somalia have always named droughts and used them as historical milestones, but that was when droughts were 10 or 15 years apart. Now they've become the new norm, and scientists say that the country has dried up much faster in the 20th century than at any other time in the past 2,000 years.
This morning, cancelled and delayed flights across Australia, the result of smoky conditions from wildfires ravaging much of the country. Now a global problem. NASA releasing these satellite images of massive smoke clouds that scientists say will travel into the atmosphere and potentially trigger thunderstorms and lightning strikes around the world.
I think overnight for Melbourne it did reach the worst in the world.
Already a cloud over the first tennis Grand Slam of the year being held in Melbourne, despite the fact the air is considered too dangerous for outdoor workers. During qualifying matches for the Australian Open, players complained of chest pains and difficulty breathing. Still, the biggest superstars in the sport plan to take to the court in Melbourne. Roger Federer, Serena Williams, Rafael Nadal, and others will take part in a charity event to raise money for wildlife relief and recovery efforts. Meantime, the impact on wildlife here is mind-boggling. More than 1 billion animals killed. Countless other animals now in a struggle to survive in habitats that no longer exist. Some species at risk of extinction.
Australia was always seen as being one of the first countries to suffer from the effects of climate change. This is what other parts of the world beyond Australia might expect to see in the future.
Typhoon is beginning to emerge. Fanfone destroyed many homes, leaving families to spend Christmas sheltering in the open air. Authorities evacuated tens of thousands of people ahead of the storm's arrival as a precaution. Fanfone's powerful winds wreaked havoc in several provinces in central Philippines, the same part of the country where thousands of people died when it was hit by Typhoon Hainan 6 years ago. Damage from Fanfone blocked roads and cut communication lines. There are reports of people taking shelter in the region's airports. Now that the storm has passed, for those who are returning home, the job of cleaning up and rebuilding their lives has begun. Although the Philippines is hit by storms several times a year, Typhoon Fanfone has made this Christmas one that will be remembered.
In one region of the Philippines, the Taal volcano has turned the landscape monochrome. Whole villages are blanketed in thick layers of volcanic ash, and formerly lush plantations have been left unrecognizable. Jack Imperial has farmed pineapple for 17 years. He says he's never seen such devastation.
The pineapples were all covered by thick mud. We can't use them anymore.
Imperial has a small stall at a local market and makes a living by selling pineapples to tourists. Not this year. Almost all his crops are ruined.
Even if we were able to harvest some pineapples for sale, if customers are scared to come because of the eruption, the pineapples will just end up rotting.
An estimated 3,000 hectares of land has been affected by ashfall in Calabazon, and the agricultural damage has already exceeded 10 million euros.
Storm Dennis may have passed, but many waking up this morning face the challenge of piecing their lives back together. For those living on the banks of the River Severn, there is, however, the worry of further damage. Warnings have been in place across the length of the river, with residents being told to move to a place of safety. Only a few miles west of the Severn is the River Team in Tenbury. Due to the sheer amount of water, the Environment Agency has told those living around the Team that their lives are at risk. But communities who have been affected are frustrated with the government. This from the Yorkshire Post, where drowning Prime Minister act now. In September, the Environment Secretary promised more than £2.6 billion for flood defence projects. But criticism even comes from Boris Johnson's own party. The MP for Shipley in West Yorkshire, Philip Davies, has said that precious little has been spent on protecting his constituents since flooding in 2015. Many people have been trapped in their own homes and businesses trying to escape the water, including this man.
We were inside about 4 o'clock trying to fight the flood, get the water out. Had no luck at all, and unfortunately it got to the point we had to just go upstairs and try and sleep.
In South Wales, one man has died after falling into the River Tawe. These people in Nantgarw had to grab what they could to escape the water. In Crickhowell, a helicopter was used to help those cut off after the River Usk burst its banks. Dozens have had to be rescued here. Meanwhile, the clean-up has begun in Pontypridd, where roads became rivers.
About 2:30 in the morning, the water started crashing over the top of the wall and didn't stop. It just kept going and going and going, and we saw an actual car with its lights on going down the river. And the worst of it is we've got no insurance because the premium was so high after the last flood.
Despite attempts from families and business owners to get back to work this morning, police are still warning the public to be careful.
And we're working very closely with our colleagues in the Natural Resources Wales and Met Office to ensure that we keep ourselves fully up to speed with developments with what the weather might look like tonight, tomorrow and for the rest of the week.